I found an ad online for some furniture, an old armchair that looked like it could fit perfectly in my apartment. The photos were dimly lit, but the chair had character, the kind you don't find in stores anymore. I messaged the seller, arranged a pickup, and told myself it would be a simple transaction. When I arrived, I realized immediately that the house was strange. From the outside, it was a large, old building with peeling paint and warped shutters. The yard was overgrown, with long grass brushing against the sidewalk, and dead leaves clung to the edges of the steps. The air smelled faintly of damp earth and mold. I felt a chill run down my spine, but I shrugged it off. I needed the chair, and it looked exactly like the pictures. The front door creaked open before I could knock. A man in his 50s greeted me with a nod. He didn't smile. He simply gestured toward the chair in the living room. "It's right there," he said quietly. His voice was calm, but there was an intensity in his eyes that made me uneasy. I stepped inside. The house was colder than the outside air, and it smelled faintly of cleaning chemicals mixed with something metallic I couldn't place. The furniture was arranged neatly, almost obsessively so, and the rooms were silent except for the faint hum of a ceiling fan. The man watched me as I inspected the chair. He didn't say much, just nodded occasionally, but I could feel his gaze lingering. Too long. It wasn't curiosity. It wasn't friendliness. It was patient. Waiting. When I handed over the money, his hands didn't shake, but the look in his eyes made my stomach twist. He seemed almost relieved, like this exchange had been a test I had passed. I took the chair, thanking him, and turned to leave. But as I walked to the door, I noticed something unnerving. He was standing perfectly still, watching me go. Not a word, not a smile, just watching. The walk back to my car felt longer than it should have. Every shadow along the street seemed darker, more deliberate. I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting him to appear behind me. But he didn't. Still, the feeling of being observed lingered, settling deep in my chest. When I got home, I set the chair in my living room. It looked perfect in the corner, catching the late afternoon light. But I couldn't shake the memory of the man's gaze. That night, every creak of the apartment made me tense. I kept imagining him standing just outside my window, watching me from the shadows. The next few days, I noticed subtle things that unsettled me further. My apartment felt heavier somehow, almost like someone was present even when it was empty. The chair seemed to demand attention. I kept finding myself glancing at it, feeling a strange pull I couldn't explain. Shadows in the corner of my vision seemed to move slightly when I looked away. I tried rationalizing it. The man was probably harmless. Maybe my imagination was getting the better of me. But one night, I woke to a noise, the faintest creak like a floorboard under a heavy footstep. I froze listening. The noise stopped, but I couldn't move. The memory of his still, patient stare made my skin crawl. Since then, I haven't left the chair in the same spot. I've tried moving it, changing the layout of my living room, but every time I sit down, I feel its presence, like the man's gaze is still watching me through the room, judging me, waiting for me to notice something I shouldn't. And the worst part? Sometimes when I walk past it in dim light, it feels different, slightly turned. Not enough to be obvious, but just enough to make me question whether I really moved it, or if someone else did. I don't know if the man will ever come back. I don't even know if he intended harm. But the memory of that house, that silence, and that unblinking stare has stayed with me. And sometimes when I sit in my apartment at night, I can feel him there too, just beyond the edge of the room, watching, waiting, patient.